Hey everyone, it's Nico, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the new collection called the Castlevania Dominus Collection, which consists of the 3 DS era Castlevania games, the arcade game Haunted Castle, and also Haunted Castle Revisited, which is a redesigned version of that previously mentioned arcade game, developed by M2. And that one is a really interesting part of this collection because it was developed, at least to my understanding, by M2. And M2 handled Castlevania Rebirth on WiiWare many years ago, and I really enjoyed that game, and I really enjoyed Haunted Castle Revisited. So I'm excited to talk about that. And a special thanks to Konami for sending over a review code so that I can cover these games, because I've been a huge Castlevania game for my entire life. Ever since the NES era, the original Castlevania game was in fact the first Castlevania I ever played. I also had Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest on the NES. I did not have Dracula's Curse, but I did play it many years later in like the early 2000s. And I have played every single Castlevania game to date, with the exception of like the weird ones, the mobile Castlevania games and Grimoire of Souls. But all of like the home console Castlevanias, I've played every single one. So I'm a huge fan of the franchise. It's probably my second favorite franchise overall, behind only the Legend of Zelda series. And I really wish they would make some new games. There's plenty of talented developers out there, so Konami, if you're watching, how about a new game? Huh? But anyways, if you don't know what this collection consists of Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow, which is the sequel to Aria of Sorrow from the Game Boy Advance, which was previously available on the Advance Collection. There's also Castlevania Portrait of Ruin, which is a really unique one because you play as 2 different characters like simultaneously. You play as both Charlotte and Jonathan Morris. And then it also includes the absolutely stellar Order of Ecclesia that features Shinoa as the protagonist. And that one is probably one of my favorite Castlevania games of all time, believe it or not. So I'm excited that I've been playing through all 3 of these. The only game in this collection that I've finished in its entirety so far is Haunted Castle Revisited, because that one is so short. It took me about like 40-45 minutes to play through that, since it is like a reimagining of an arcade game. But all 3 of the DS games I've played through about an hour or so of each to get a feel for how they play, how they look. So I'm here to give you the lowdown. Now, I started off with Dawn of Sorrow because that one is the one that I felt like would be impacted the most by not having the touchscreen, because it did have some heavy touchscreen functionality. When you would fight bosses, you would have to seal them by tracing this pattern on the touchscreen with the stylus or with your finger. So I was really curious how this was going to work in this game, and they handled it really well. And there's actually, I think, 2 different ways you can do it. The right thumbstick acts as your stylus. It'll give you a cursor on the screen, and then also the right trigger is like the equivalent of pressing it down on the screen. So you can do it that way, but they also kind of made it like a QuickTime event where there will be buttons that you can press on the screen. So for example, on the first seal, the pattern goes in like a V shape. So at the start of the V, I think it was X, and then A at the bottom, and then B. So you just do it like that. So it's like a QuickTime event. It's nothing that hurts the experience. I actually kind of prefer it this way, if I'm being honest. There are parts where you do need to still use, like, you know, the cursor on the screen and the right trigger, like when you remove ice blocks, for example. So you do still need to use that, and I think the way they did it is handled really well. Now, another thing you probably already noticed, and this isn't the only option, but the way they optimize the screen usage by default is my preferred way. Now, you have a big screen, which is basically the play screen, and then normally on the DS you'd be able to toggle between like your bestiary screen and also your map screen. What they did here is instead they have both of those screens on the right side, and you could switch if the map's on the bottom or the map's on the top, whichever you prefer. For me, I had the map on the top, and then you also have your main screen on the left. So with this being the layout, normally in like retro compilations and things like that, because these games were the 4:3 aspect ratio, you have like black borders going down the sides. Well, with this, they have all the screen real estate being used. So there's no black borders, there's no wasted space. And again, there's options. You could switch it if you don't like this. There's plenty of different options. There's like several of them where you could change how the screen's laid out. But I thought this was a really great way to handle having the DS screens on one TV screen. I really liked what they did here. Those are kind of the main two things that were my concerns and my questions based around this being DS ports, and I think they did an awesome job with it. And there's plenty of features here that are added into this collection. There's a music player. You can even make your own playlist and compile all the songs. So if you want to listen to the music for any of the games, you can do that, even the new one and the original Haunted Castle, which are counted as extras. There's also a bunch of scans of art and manual scans. There's full manual scans in different languages. They even have the different box arts that are scanned. So there's some nice extras in there. And having the original manuals is something that I wish every single re-release would do. I always loved looking at my physical manuals when I would buy games. I would always look at them before I would play the game. There's usually story elements in there that you don't get in the game, controls, maybe tips and tricks, cool artwork. So I'm super happy to see all of this extra content in this package. You can save and load anywhere. You can also save the way the game handled it originally, which is save rooms. And it pretty much has all of the features that I ever would have asked for. All of the games played great. I didn't see any graphical glitches. The music sounded spot on. The game's controlled perfectly. Because the controllers we have nowadays have all the functionality of the DS. You know, it had the 4 face buttons, a D-pad, start and select, L and R. So obviously nowadays we also have triggers. So the right trigger, like I said, is your stylus input, and the left trigger is for your save, your load. You can rewind. There's also a compendium for each game, so you can see the drops, the enemy types, weapons, all that sort of stuff. Lots of extra information in the compendium for the main 3 games. In addition to that, I was playing on the Xbox. There's also a slew of achievements, tons of content here for the $25 asking price. And I think it's worth it. I honestly think that this is the best collection so far. Not that any of the previous Castlevania collections were bad. They were all great. But I think what really made this one the best for me is that these were handheld games, and I always prefer to play games on a console. So having these DS games on a console done right for the first time makes this an excellent way to play these, and I'm so excited to play through the entirety of all 3 of these games again. And while I'm not really gonna review them because there's plenty of reviews out there, I would be interested to know that if you would want to see that from me. Would you want me to review these games? Would you find that entertaining if I kind of drew on my past experiences, since I have played these before? Let me know in the comments. Sound off in the comments below. Let me know if that's something you're interested in. Now, the final thing I want to talk about is Haunted Castle Revisited, which is a redesigned version of the arcade game, and this is new. This is new and exclusive content, and I had so much fun with this. I will probably never play the original Haunted Castle arcade again because of how good this redesigned version is. It takes what felt like a cheap, unfair, and stiff arcade game and makes it feel like a genuinely fun home console Castlevania game for the first time in many years. This redesign of Haunted Castle is the first proper Castlevania game we've gotten in a very long time, and even if you didn't like the arcade game, still give this one a try. Still buy this collection. The inclusion of this on top of 3 fantastic DS games makes this collection an absolute must-buy. I am having so much fun with this. I had so much fun with Haunted Castle Revisited. And if you do want to see my full playthrough of Haunted Castle Revisited, check the description below for a link to that. If you have any questions about this package, I kind of gave a brief overview, let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to get back to you. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and who knows, maybe I'll make some more content on this collection in the future. But until next time, have a good one.